What up, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, Hazyrome, and as always, I'm joined by the Gotham Knight, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, Deepboyce. And today we're in the Hall of Spoilers to rank every DCEU movie. That's right, everybody. With the Justice League movie releasing this year in 2017, and at the end of 2017, rapidly approaching, we thought it would be a good idea to rank every single movie that the DCEU has spit out. Given that, you know, the notion of Phase 4 in a sense, you know, I use that in air quotes because, you know, we've never usually used that term. Even the DCEU is sort of a fan-made, media-made term. But I felt that with the end of, like, the first phase of DC movies, you know, Justice League sort of putting a cap on that, a culmination of all that, I figured it would be a good time to rank these movies. Me and Deepboyce are out here. We're talking about every single movie that the DCEU has dropped. We're talking about, you know, Man of Steel. We're talking about Justice League. We're talking about Suicide Squad. We're talking about Wonder Woman. We're talking about Batman vs. Superman. This is a ranking from bottom to top, the worst to the best, all of the DC movies. Deepboyce.
Ooh.
Let's get started.
It's about to get controversial.
It's about to get controversial in here, baby. Let's do it. People gonna be mad. Deepboyce, at number 5, we've got Batman versus Superman, everybody.
Wah.
Wah, people. Okay.
This is probably the most controversial choice
absolutely.
on the list.
Absolutely.
Yes, correct. Batman versus Superman, out of all 5 DCEU movies, we're ranking at number 5 at the bottom. It's the worst. I mean, this movie people have talked about day in and day out ever since release. Absolutely. But when it really comes down to it, we just did not enjoy it. This was supposed to be a game changer. But not only did it have a number of plot holes, not only did it not do most of the characters justice, but it was just a slog.
Shout out to Justice League.
Shout out to Justice League. It was a slog to get through.
Yeah, it was tough for me to get through.
Difficult to get through.
It was hard.
I'm sorry, guys. I understand. Just because a movie is quote unquote dark or quote unquote serious does not automatically make it good, or vice versa. If it's happy-go-lucky doesn't make it good or bad. It still has to stand up on its own merits as a film. This just, I mean, no idea what Lex Luthor was up to, why he was doing what he was doing. This was possibly Henry Cavill's worst performance. He was terrible as Superman in this. I'm sorry, I'm just going to be honest. You know, Batfleck was alright, in my opinion, and Wonder Woman was good, but she was, you know, more of a, I guess, supporting character, a bit of, you know, just a nice added fluff to the film. And then the villains, again, Lex Luthor was not that entertaining of a villain, and Doomsday was just there because they needed something to punch at the end of the movie.
Yeah, and I don't want to belittle the conversations we've had about Batman vs. Superman, both us and the fandom, but, you know, long story short, when it comes to Cavill, I felt his performance was largely wooden. In particular, the scene where he's in the courtroom and he realizes that Lex Luthor has effectively tricked him into coming there, and the whole place blew up while he was in there. His emotion during that scene was lacking. Like, dozens of people just died around you, and you showed zero emotion to that effect. You also were rather stunned at it, and I just felt like he came out saving one person, but he was just sort of like, I'm gonna come out, put this one person here, and walk away. Like, I didn't necessarily need to see him crying. I needed to see shock. I needed to see something, but his face was largely wooden. The machinations of Lex Luthor, fine. You may want to say that, you know, he got what he wanted, but, you know, he was very wacky.
What did he want?
I mean, he wanted them to go head to head against each other, but it just seemed like one of those roundabout plans. I was like, dude, like this is beyond your genius, and you know that you can make them go against each other. This is sort of like convenient to the plot. This isn't like, hey, super genius planning something that was really smart. This is like the plot needs this to happen, so it's happening. You know what I'm trying to say? Wonder Woman was fine to me. Batfleck was all right. I mean, I'm not really a huge fan of Batfleck, but
we'll talk about
he was fine in the
Batfleck
movie
eventually.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But you know, Batman vs Superman was largely just mundane, and they spent a lot of time building up the political nature of, you know, having a superpowered being, unchecked, and then they just literally blew it all to hell once that courtroom blew up. Like the senator that was introduced, all of that was blown up, and that was a good, I would say, third of the movie, and that a waste of time. On to the next one at number 4. Once again, controversial.
Controversial. Our number 4 pick here is Suicide Squad. Yes, we liked Suicide Squad slightly better than Batman vs Superman. Can you argue that Batman vs Superman is a better movie than Suicide Squad? Sure, and many people say that. Many people, I think the majority of people out there will say that. But while the two of us, we didn't go to the movie theaters to see Suicide Squad. Hell no. But we saw it much after the fact. And, you know, while it's definitely not a great movie, it didn't pain me to watch it. You know, it didn't. I didn't feel drained after watching it. It was what it was, and it has a few decent aspects. You know, I think Will Smith with Deadshot was he was good. He was good. You know, and
when you look at the protagonist for Batman vs Superman versus the protagonist for Suicide Squad, like, you could at least enjoy the people you were seeing on the screen in Suicide Squad in terms of like Will Smith heading up the fold, really. Yeah. And, to a lesser extent, and I don't mean that she was inferior, I just mean I enjoyed her a little bit less. Harley Quinn, Margot Robbie. I don't feel like she's this breakout star that everybody's, wilding out about. And to to just pad what I'm saying here, like, I'm considered, Boyce considers me like the DC cat. I grew up with DC. I love DC a lot. I mean, Boyce does too, but I'm the one who, like, really loves DC. Suicide Squad, at least... What I liked about Suicide Squad was that they at least tried to do something different. Yeah. Like, this could have been their answer to, like, Guardians of the Galaxy. Like, a rogue group that's funny, that's wacky, going out and doing something. I like the fact that the DCEU took a risk instead of doing what everyone thought they should do, which is make a Superman movie, make a Batman movie, make a Wonder Woman movie, make an Aquaman movie, make a Flash movie, then Justice League. They tried to think outside the box. Visually, it was pretty cool. But I mean, DeepBoyce, man, feel free to take over.
Yeah, no, I mean, again, this is just what people have already kind of gone over. But probably the biggest problem with this movie is the editing. It is atrocious. I mean,
yeah,
I'm not a filmmaker, but it's hard for me to mince words here. And it's clear that behind the scenes there was one version of the movie, and then for some reason or the other, they took the people that made the baller trailer that got everybody excited about the movie and had them come in and redo this movie, re-edit this movie. And that was a big mistake. It was just jump cuts all over the place. And really the story was not that interesting. And the villain, I mean, the Enchantress is one of the wackest villains in superhero movies, period.
Purely nonsensical.
It was whack.
I must create my weapon because humanity used to worship me, and now they don't. Dude, what?
That's.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, you could at least hit us with a flashback to explain why they used to worship. Why they used to worship you. Why. What this weapon actually was gonna be. What would it do? I mean, why did your brother that you unleash? Why did your brother have to absorb 4 human beings to become the full form? Like, I don't understand. Like, how did Amanda Waller expect to keep you on lock and key just because? She had your heart. Like, you could teleport through mirrors and stuff. Why did she randomly pick a black guy to be like, hey, you're the host of my brother? Like, she just randomly picked, she went to the subway, picked somebody through a mirror, and was like, hey, you're going to be my brother. For no particular reason.
Yeah, and I don't know what they did with the Joker in this one. They dropped the ball on that one. I'm sorry.
There was no need for the Joker in this movie. And why I said Harley Quinn was shortchanged in this movie is because they literally could have gone into this notion that this woman is in an abusive relationship, and they could have gone with the nuances that come with showing the cyclical nature of being in an abusive relationship. Sort of hating the person at the same time as loving the person, despite what they're doing to you. And they hinted at it. That's the thing that annoyed me. They hinted at it. They could have done that, but they didn't. Because there were clearly signs where she was thinking about him, and you saw her in her face that she didn't like what she was thinking about. That it upset her.
Yeah.
And they didn't go into it, and ultimately he was just, I mean, that whole scene where he's in the club and, you know, she's dancing and then a guy looks at her and then Common looks at her, right? And the whole exchange there, it was just meant to make Joker seem like sort of this mobster character, but it didn't make sense. It just, once again, the cuts didn't make sense. Like, Joker could have not been in that movie, and they could have had time to maybe flesh out Enchantress. I understand you can't have Joker without Harley Quinn, but I mean, what did the Joker ultimately contribute to that movie? I mean, Jared Leto said that there are more scenes shot of him as a Joker, but it doesn't matter. The final cut of the movie didn't have it. But I like the fact they went out on a limb. They tried to go balls to the wall crazy. Will Smith as Deadshot, charismatic. I liked him as Deadshot. Like, he was probably the one thing that I was like, is not so bad about this movie. And that's the only reason why it's better than Batman vs Superman to me. You know? It wasn't as painful to watch. But on to number 3, Deepboyce. Another controversial. Now, this whole list, I think, is controversial, with the exception of maybe our number 1. But number 3, everybody, Justice League. Justice League. The coup de grace, the crown jewel. That's what I was doing when I was watching the movie because I fell asleep. No, I didn't fall asleep, but I could have fallen asleep because it wasn't very entertaining. But Justice League at number 3. I mean, in short, this was supposed to be the crown jewel of the DC movieverse. This was supposed to be the ultimate culmination of everything that they've worked on so far. And to be honest with you, I mean, to have Steppenwolf as the villain, I mean, he was awful.
Yeah,
he was awful. I mean, aside from questionable CG, questionable motivations, wanting to unite the mother box, like, yeah, fine. I mean, I just felt like the things that intrigued me the most about Justice League, I just didn't get enough of. Yeah. Like, Cyborg was great in the movie. Fantastic. But all the other new characters pretty much didn't really get that much shine.
Yeah.
Like, Aquaman had, like, no lines. I mean, he had that one, soliloquy, I guess, where he was just speaking the truth because he was sitting on the lasso of truth. Cool. I like the Aquaman. But ultimately, he got shortchanged. Yeah. And it's tough to do that in a movie like that. I understand. Yeah. But that's the choice they made. They chose to go with this movie.
Yeah, the thing is, I mean, it's the first half, it's clear that they cut out a lot of scenes because you're definitely jumping from one end to another end, and suddenly you see Aquaman with the trident. What's going on there? Nope. We're jumping over to Flash. What's going on there? Nope. We're jumping over to Batman. Why does this parademon, when he exploded, suddenly leaves this diagram of these 3 mother boxes and it gives Batman some sort of clue? That makes absolutely no sense, but hey, we're running with it. And then obviously they decide to resurrect Superman. And the second half, I guess, it's okay. The ending, it was just, I don't know, not even, I've seen episodes of Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, the cartoon shows, that have maybe given me a little bit more in terms of like a final fight between the Justice League and the bigger villain. It wasn't absolutely terrible, but it was rather questionable. While Batman vs Superman, there was a lot writing onto it, Justice League was clearly, this was the last thing holding.
This is the crown jewel.
This was the last thing holding back utter disaster, and it kind of failed. It failed financially. It didn't really make the DCEU flourish, in my opinion. And quite honestly, I feel that maybe after this, they should do some sort of reboot. They're not going to, but they really need to sit down and kind of rethink their ultimate strategy and how they're going to present these characters, because they have to do them justice. They have to do Batman justice. No pun intended. I know it's the Justice League, but they have to do Batman justice. They have to do the Flash justice. They have to do Superman better.
A lot of people like the Flash. I personally, the more I thought about the Flash's portrayal, I just felt like this wasn't Barry Allen, this wasn't Wally West, this was their Flash. Yeah. And some people thought he was funny. I personally didn't really think he was that funny. Like, I felt like his punchlines were sort of like,
forced.
Very hit or miss and forced. And it saddens me because I love the Flash. Yeah. I love the Flash, and I didn't like this version of the Flash. His, some of his comments, like him commenting on his metabolism, very Flash-like. But the moments when he does it, I'm just like, dude, Can you like not? Can you not? Like I'm trying to enjoy this movie.
It was very slapsticky in a way that it just did not fit in the movie because no one else was really like that. I mean, there was humor that actually worked. I mean, you mentioned how there was humor scene with like Aquaman and Lasso or Truth like that. That's stuff that works, that makes sense within the context of the universe. But this constant like quipping, it just wasn't. It wasn't all that entertaining, and it wasn't cohesive enough of an experience. But it's middle of the road.
Yeah, people. I mean, Wonder Woman. I thought she was fine. I would have loved her. I would have loved them to take the ability or take the move to have her show the ability to lead a little bit more, because it seemed that's what they were hinting at. But I would have loved to see her take the reins a little bit more. Batman. I just want to say real quickly, Batman. I don't know what they were doing with Batman, but if anybody liked anything about Batman vs Superman, I feel like they squandered it in Justice League. I mean, having him being suicidal, his remark about Diana and her and Steve Trevor, like totally out of line, and definitely not even something that Batman would do. Batman's a dick, but when he's a dick, he's usually right about being a dick. You understand what I'm saying? It's not like he's being a dick just to be a dick. This is a guy who lost his own parents. He knows, he understands death and loss. Yeah. He would never use that on somebody in that way. That was so tone deaf to the Batman character. It was crazy, But I can't talk about Justice League anymore because it just gets me depressed, man. On to number 2, Deepboyce. Hit him with number 2.
Number 2, the controversy continues. And number 2 on our list here is Man of Steel.
Yes, sir.
Now, again, this apparently... A little bit of insight. When I personally went to see this movie, I thought, hey, this is not so bad. This is an interesting start to the DC extended universe. But apparently...
Well, that was even before we even knew they were making a
universe. Absolutely. But apparently, many other people did not share that sentiment, and a lot of people ranked this movie low on their own personal list of the DCEU movie. But if you ask me, and obviously Hazy also agrees because we came together and agreed on this list... Man of Steel is a solid movie. I mean, yeah, it's
definitely relative to the 3 previous movies. Way more solid, in my opinion.
Yes, it's way more solid. It's see the key thing between Man of Steel and the previous 3 movies we mentioned, Justice League, Suicide Squad, and Batman vs Superman, is that it at least tells a cohesive story from beginning to end. You know what I mean? Right. It's not perfect, but at least you can sit down and there are certain things that don't give you a headache.
Right.
Not to
no, you're absolutely
not
right.
To exaggerate too much. And yeah, this is, I guess, a different take on Superman. I'm not the best person to ask about Superman. I'm not like a huge Superman fan. But I thought the beginnings of what they did were rather interesting in this movie. It's not perfect by any means, but the way it progresses, the story of Superman's youth, leading into Superman, finally deciding I'm going to take this big step into stepping out into the world stage and revealing myself to be this otherworldly being that's super powerful. It was entertaining, and I thought the action was great. I honestly really dug the action. I really loved because one of the negatives about one of the problems that I personally have with Superman is the way that he fights, the way they depict him fighting. But I think in Man of Steel, it was cool. It was cool. I mean, it was oddly enough, and I've talked to Hazy about this. I felt coming out of Man of Steel that was a great example of how a Dragon Ball Z live action movie could be done.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was fun. Thing about Man of Steel is in theaters, it's like I enjoyed it. When I came out, that's when I started thinking about the flaws. But these previous movies, like I can't say after viewing them or during it, I was enjoying myself. You know what I mean? I didn't enjoy myself during these previous three movies. But Man of Steel, like the fighting was great. Shout out to Feora, by the way. The humor with Jor-El. I felt like Michael Shannon is sort of one of the villains in the DCU that's sort of forgotten. Michael Shannon as General Zod. I mean, certainly better than any of the other villains in the previous 3 movies, in my opinion. I don't think Lex Luthor even comes close to Michael Shannon's Zod portrayal.
Agreed.
Now, Zod isn't necessarily one of the best villains of all time, but considering that someone had previously played Zod, I felt like that's maybe what. That maybe kind of took away from the Zod legend, the legend of this Zod character.
He had to measure up to something that was previously done. That I don't think.
Right, Terrence Stamp. Right, as Zod, but you know, it was. I felt like he was a better villain than certainly anyone on the previous list, or on the previous entries on this list. So, Man of Steel, solid number 2. It's not a number 2 that's like, oh my gosh, this is one of the best movies of all time. It's just simply better than the other 3 in our opinion. But number 1, and this is decisively number 1. This one is number 1 by a mile, to be honest with you. And this is, of course, Wonder Woman. So, Wonder Woman, you know, received critical acclaim. Fans loved Wonder Woman. And to be honest with you, Gal Gadot, you know, positioned herself as sort of the mainstays of the DCEU, and possibly one of the lone bright spots in the DCEU so far. She was great as Wonder Woman. Listen, I ain't gonna front. You know, Gal Gadot, she has limitations as an actress, but Patty Jenkins and the people who created Wonder Woman wrote the movie in such a way that it didn't highlight those weaknesses as an actress, and the action scenes were also well done. Really well done for Wonder Woman. I mean, Deepboyce, I think the only problem we probably had with Wonder Woman was probably the last third of the movie, including Ares, you know, clothing himself in a bunch of debris and literally having a twirling mustache. That was pretty much it for me. Yeah. But I thought it was a great movie.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, it could have been some slight but major tweaks that would have really put this movie over the top and really made it one of the greats out there, you know, because obviously, like you said, just Ares and that fight was a little weak, and thematically, I thought they stumbled slightly thematically. Not to get too much into it, but just kind of the theme of, I guess, love. But I think it would have made more sense if the theme would be the duality of man and how that parallels the gods. You know, again, because oftentimes they say that we're made in the image of God or the gods or whatever, right? And that would have
the duality of man. That's key.
Yeah, right there. And there's nothing that Ares hates more in that movie than men. And for Wonder Woman to beat him with logic and to say you're no different than man, I mean, that would have drove him wild in my mind. But, you know, they stuck with, I guess, the more rudimentary ending, which is, hey, they're not so bad because they're full of love, and, you know.
They're capable of love.
They're capable of love, which is fine.
You know, I think with what you said about Ares, I think it would have been... I didn't want to necessarily... I didn't want her for her to necessarily say, you're no better than man, but I wanted her to be like, hey, you're the best of men, the best that I've seen from the men that I've met, of mankind that I've seen, is better than you. You can't even come close to how the goodness, the love, the kindness, the friendship that I've seen from men. I felt it was a little bit weird to just be like, the power of love, like very in keeping with like maybe old school Wonder Woman, but just not in keeping tonally with the movie. You know, also her falling in love with Steve Trevor was, you know, obviously canonical to the comics in a sense, but also very fast. And the idea that this power of, you know, spontaneous love and this power that she gained from it defeated Ares, you know, it just...
I mean, Hazy, you're telling me you wouldn't fall for Steve Trevor?
Listen, man, I like Steve Trevor, but, I mean, we're talking about, like, you know, high school love here, bro. Like, we're like, talking about, I love this person that I just met. You know, I'm not saying love at first sight is impossible. It's just that, you know, we've seen it so many times in cinematography that I think sometimes we ask for a little bit more when it comes to using love as like the source of the drive for these people. Yeah. You know what I mean? For these characters in this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. And when it's all said and done, listen, at the center of the DCEU, it should be Wonder Woman and Patty Jenkins. Just give them the ball and have them run. They'll take you to the end zone, DC. Let's just build everything around what has worked thus far, which is Wonder Woman. And you know, maybe we can actually succeed and then get something entertaining here out of everything.
Indeed. That being said, let us know which entries you disagreed on this list, because we know you did. Let us know what your personal ranking is. Let us know what you thought about the things we had to say. And by all means, please understand that we try to do this in a limited amount of time. We could probably talk forever about the flaws that we had with some of these movies, but we did our best. Support the Spectacular Spoiler League, if you will, by hitting the subscribe button and joining the cause. Feel free to hit that little bell icon right next to the subscribe button so you could be up to date with the latest and greatest coming from the Spectacular Spoiler League. Drop us a like so we can get this video out here and we can have more dope conversations like this, because when the video's over, the conversation has just begun. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.